Well, as you can see, the ct70, the 77, is back in the garage with the side on. Okay, so my test run with it, this is what happened. No horsepower and bogging. So, I think I've addressed all the issues of the carburetor. Everything is fine. I don't see anything wrong. On the website that I check once in a while, Little Honda, one of the person on that site said it might be my emulsion tube in my carburetor. That's the one that the main jet screws to. You can take that tube out, and there's little holes in that tube. So I took it out, I checked it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I looked at it under a magnifying lens, and I don't see any dirt. So I checked the compression, and I'm low. I'm at 120 psi's, which this thing should be at least 150. I got a brand new cylinder, piston and rings, brand new valves with springs and everything. This thing should be 150. So there's something going on here. I think it's my valves. Maybe I didn't lap them long enough, and they're not sealing properly. I'm losing pressure somewhere. So, guess what I'm doing today? Taking the heads off right here. So I'll take those off, and I'm going to check the valves and see what's going on. What I normally do, and maybe that's what happened, is that when I lap the valves, I'll put a flashlight in the port, either the intake where the carburetor goes or the exhaust port. And then I'll turn lights out in the shop, and with a high-powered light in the port, I'll look at the valves and see if I see any light coming out from around the valve. And if I don't, it should be fine, right? But maybe not. Maybe that's not such a good idea after all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the heads off and take some brake clean, for example. It's a spray to clean your brakes, and it evaporates, doesn't leave any residue. So what I'll do is I'll spray some on top of the valves, and if it leaks, then obviously that's what the problem is. So anyway, I'm going to take this apart. I'm not going to bother filming that. You know, it's pretty straightforward. Take the carburetor off, right? And then the exhaust, take that off, and then head bolts, and also, of course, the cam chain has to come off in the gear, so you can get the chain off, and then just a matter of pulling the heads off. So anyway, I'll get to it right now. Okay, get the heads off. Here are the valves, right here and here. So this would be the exhaust valve, and that would be the intake valve. And so I did my flashlight trick. And yes, I can see light around the edges right here on my intake. I don't see any on my exhaust. And I also, the other thing that you should do, I guess, that I didn't do, and I would have caught it sooner if I had done it, put the spark plug in, and then take like gasoline or something like that, and fill up the whole dome right here. And then just wait and see if the fluid level goes down. If it goes down, your valves are leaking. And also what you can do is you can check inside the ports, right, with a flashlight, right here and right here. And if they're leaking, you'll see fluid in there. So those are what you should be doing. So I'm going to lap the valves here and see if I can get them to seat properly. If I can't, then I guess my next step would be to take it to a machine shop and get them to cut the valve seats. So I'd rather not do that just because there's not much material in there to begin with on these little bikes. So I'd rather avoid that, but if I have to, I guess I'll have to, right? If I don't, I can't get them to sit properly. I can't use the bike. It's just not running right. Doesn't have any power. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to lap them, and hopefully I can get them to seal properly. Okay, I've done lapping my valves. I didn't bother showing that video. It's long and tedious, and I don't want to bore you guys. But anyway, so they're all nice and seated now. So I'll take one out. I'll take the intake one out. And you can see here in the valve itself, nice and shiny all around. Same thing with the seats, and same with the exhaust valve too. So now, to check to see if they're leaking after you're done lapping, I used 3 different methods. One of them is I used my light method, and the other is you can put the valves in, of course, and then you take some gasoline and you fill up the dome right here, and then look inside the ports to see if it's leaking. And after, the other I did is you can put a dye on the valve. You smear some dye around the edge of the valve, and then you take it, put it in, and then you just kind of seat it, don't turn it, and then pop it out. Then look on the edge here to see if it's an even distribution of the dye, right? To make sure that all the points of contact there's dye on it. Then check the valve on the edge, and you just make sure that there's an even distribution of dye. So I've done all 3, and it looks like my valves are not leaking anymore. The culprit on mine was the intake one from the carburetor. It was leaking, and the exhaust was fine, but I lapped it anyway just to make sure. Now the dye that you use on here, it's called Prussian blue, and you get it at a machine shop, or you can do like I did. I've got kids that like to paint. Well, they're not kids, they're teenagers, but they like to paint. And the one that paints, she likes to use oil paint and acrylic. So I found in her painting kit some Prussian blue oil paint. So I use this. You just need something that's going to dye, that's going to transfer the color. So I put a bit of dye all along the edge of my valve, right here, right? And then I put it back in, pushed it down, then I checked, and I had an even distribution of dye. So to me, I believe I'm okay. But I guess the biggest test is going to be when I put it back together and I do a compression test. I should have around 150 psi with this engine, since it's a brand new engine. Brand new cylinder, brand new piston, brand new rings, brand new valves. I should have at least 150. If I don't, then I have to start looking at the piston rings. Not sure where I would have gone wrong there, but who knows, right? I mean, it takes me a while to put these bikes together. I'll go like a month before I even look at them. And, you know, just like the valves. Maybe I forgot to lap that valve. I don't know. So, but anyway, that's it for this moment. I'm going to start putting it back together, and then we'll do a compression test and see what we get.